Well, they've had to wait all morning, but it's finally the turn of the Ginetta GT Academy drivers to head to the track for their second race here at Donington Park in now pretty pleasant conditions again, actually. It's sunny, the track is drying out quite nicely, and the Ginetta drivers are set to do battle for the second time this weekend. The ambient temperature creeping into the mid-teens now. The track temperature is not much higher, but once it dries out, that will start to climb once again. Still a high chance of further rain, though, as we go through the afternoon, so I don't think these conditions are going to be particularly static for the rest of the day. Yesterday's race was a dramatic one, I think it's fair to say. It all kicked off at the first corner with James Nicholas, who started from the front of the grid, tangling with Mike Taylor, and those two both ended up out of the race with steering and suspension damage. James Nicholas, who starts from pole in this race. James Nicholas, who was the championship, or is still a championship contender. He was actually second in the championship in the rookie class to Harry Gamble, but pretty close between the two of them. That gap ended up going out because obviously Nicholas didn't finish yesterday and Harry Gamble was able to finish on the podium. We also had drama later on as well between Charlotte Lowe and Paul Thomas up at Coppice Corner when Charlotte spun and was collected by Paul, with whom she'd been battling for much of the race. So hopefully we've got everyone back out there for race 2, and if we do, this is how the grid will look. James Nicholas and Luke Shaw together on row number 1. Second row then for Mike Taylor and Thomas Balfe. And row number 3, Harry Gamble and Gareth Thomas. Harry Gamble, again, looking to try and extend now that championship lead. Amy Tomlinson had a good run yesterday to a GTA class victory. She starts 7th ahead of Mark Ellman. And then row number 5, shared by Julian Wantling and Emma Tomlinson, another pair of GTA class drivers. Then it's Jamie Cordell and Charlotte Lowe. Row number 6, row 7 for Peter Thompson and Ali Juffali. And then on the 8th row of the grid, Lucie Tomlinson and Lucie Hodgson, who I've discovered this morning is a grandmother, would you believe, Lucie Hodgson, proving that age is no barrier to racing in motorsport. Paul Thomas, meanwhile, at the back of the grid, will line up at the tail end of the 17-car field. So, Luke Shaw with a win yesterday. This man here, Tom Balfe, was second, and Harry Gamble coming home third after what was an entertaining scrap, but in the end, Luke Shaw able to withstand the pressure. He was being caught in the closing stages by Thomas Balfe, actually. He pulled away mid-race, and then Thomas was coming back at him, only to be thwarted by a red flag that came out. It was the second red flag, having had the red flag already at the start of the race. That was actually not because of the contact between Mike Taylor and James Nicholas, but because of further contact behind involving Mark Ellman and Harry Gamble. So, top 2 in the Rookie Class Championship. Gamble and James Nicholas both in trouble at Redgate Corner at the start of the race, but unlike Gamble, Nicholas wasn't able to continue, so Gamble was able to run at the restart, and that gave him a good number of points for a class podium. As you can see, they're having a second green flag lap here. There wasn't actually any notification of that on the timing screen, and interestingly, they haven't shortened the race as they have done with everybody else so far. So it's still going to be a race run to the full 20 minutes. Let's ride on board with Mark Ellman, who was tapped into a spin at the start of yesterday's race. And as he rotated, he sort of went backwards into the side of Harry Gamble's car. Not too much damage done. They were both able to take the restart. Gamble, as I said, finishing 3rd. And Mark Ellman came home in 5th. Up towards McLean's they head then on the green flag lap, and the Ginetta G56 safety car leading them around. James Nicholas, one of the big success stories of this championship. Really, James is exactly the kind of driver that this championship is for. If you've never driven a racing car before and you want to have a go, then the Ginetta GT Academy is the perfect place to come to learn your craft. These are generally drivers who have never really raced anything before. Certainly those in the rookie class fall into that category. But even some of the GTA class drivers, not terribly experienced, really. It is the first stepping stone on that Ginetta racing ladder, and it's proven to be a massively, massively popular championship, with grid numbers starting to swell again now in 2024 as well, which is exactly what we like to see. More new names coming in, perhaps for a part season campaign in 24, before maybe doing the full year in 2025. So the field then drops down towards the Melbourne hairpin. James Nicholas on the inside line, and he will be hoping this time around to have a cleaner run through the first corner. Of course, he's got Mike Taylor right behind him again. Mike, the winner of the first round of the championship back at Alton Park, and it was Mike Taylor starting third who collided with James Nicholas yesterday, who started from pole. So let's hope we don't get a repeat of that. The teams have done a good job to get the cars fixed up and back out on track, and they will now make their way around Goddard's towards the line. Almost a bit of contact already there between Nicholas and Luke Shaw, but 2 by 2 they run to the line then, and the red lights will go out very shortly. That will get us racing for the second time this weekend in the Ginetta GT Academy. James Nicholas looking to try and have a clean run through the first corner. Is Mike Taylor going to try and get past him? Well, there is a bit of door banging, but this time between he and Luke Shaw, who was trying to sort of come across on him there, but it doesn't work. James Nicholas gets through Redgate Corner as the race leader. There's a spin though, that's Ali Tomlinson, and thankfully avoided by everybody else. That could have been a repeat of yesterday's first corner shenanigans, but they managed to avoid collecting her then, so Amy should be able to continue. Indeed, I can see out of the window that she has, as the rest of the field make their way through the old hairpin for the first time. Grid order for the top 6 by the looks of it. Gareth Thomas, is still there in 6th position. Then it's Mark Ellman in 7th place, so he obviously benefited from the Amy Tomlinson spin. Whether he had a part to play in that, I don't know. Maybe his onboard camera will tell us. Meanwhile, Harry Gamble taking a bit of a gamble there by going around the outside of Thomas Balfe. Is that going to work? This is for 4th position. He's on the outside again into Coppice Corner. Balfe gets a headbutt from Gareth Thomas. I thought for a moment that was going to send him clattering into the side of Harry Gamble's car. That is the risk you take by going around the outside, but thankfully that did not happen, and Harry Gamble is able to make the move stick cleanly. So Gamble up a place. Mark Ellman now joining in the fun as well. We ride on board with the SVG Motorsport driver as he very carefully negotiates the Fogarty S's for the first time. Gets a bit of dirt and moisture kicked up in his face there by Gareth Thomas ahead, as James Nicholas almost lost it, I think, there, going into the Melbourne hairpin. Thomas is up the inside of Balfe and looks to try and make that move stick on the exit of Melbourne. Is he going to get it done? They're probably still going to be side by side as they come towards us. Yes, they are. Balfe is stubbornly hanging on the inside line, but Thomas had the traction, had the momentum, and now he has the place as well. So into the top 5 for Gareth Thomas. Off the final corner they go. Out wide for Lucie Tomlinson, and into the gravel has gone Charlotte Lowe. So Charlotte Lowe, for the 2nd race in a row, is not going to see the checkered flag. Thankfully this time the car is undamaged, but it's very much stuck in a dangerous position. And I think we all know what that means. It's going to be probably a visit from the safety car. James Nicholas will not be very happy to hear, because he's looking very good out in front now, isn't he, as the race leader. Luke Shaw trying to stay with him, but not yet proving able to do so. Taylor 3rd, Gamble 4th, doesn't look all that rapid either, so James Nicholas with a good opportunity here to score some important championship points. But he would rather the safety car didn't come out, I'm sure, and he could just keep on building on this lead. Although, having said that, Luke Shaw closing in on this lap, so maybe James is actually going to be a bit more grateful to see the safety car than I first thought. If we get a safety car, we haven't actually yet had that confirmed. There are yellow flags out down the exhibition straight. A bollard goes flying. I think James Nicholas kicked that bollard up, actually, and then Luke Shaw found it in the middle of the road. Mike Taylor moving up to challenge Luke, but he's going to have to back out of that because he's going into a yellow flag zone. I said, you're going into a yellow flag zone, Mike. And also the safety car is out. Both of which are reasons not to be overtaking people generally. So Mike Taylor, thankfully, I reckon might get away with that because he bailed out of it just in the nick of time. He might have got his nose in front, but he gave the place straight back, so possibly will be all right. But yeah, need to be wary of those yellow flags. Oh, we've got more overtaking going on and driving into each other now. That's Peter Thompson and Jamie Cordell getting together. I can only imagine there's some sort of debate here as to who was ahead at the time of the safety car, but driving into each other behind the safety car, not normally the best way to rectify that. Jamie Cordell is, I think, going to come across the line ahead of Thompson, so that's settled in his favour. Jamie Cordell has never raced a car before. This was his first car racing event, and yeah, one of those drivers definitely very much learning their craft here in the Ginetta GT Academy. James Nicholas and Luke Shaw getting close and personal on the run into the first corner then. And James Nicholas was able to hang on. There was the spin for Amy Tomlinson. Again, couldn't quite see whether she was involved with someone. Mark Ellman's view might tell us more. There ahead of us is Amy, And there's going to be a bit of a squeeze. Oh, they're 4 abreast at the apex, and ahead, actually, of that is where Amy Tomlinson got tapped into a spin. So, not entirely sure still how that happened, but there was definitely some contact, you could tell. And then, interestingly, look at that, Mark Elman had no interest in going onto the wet side of the road, did he? This was Charlotte Lowe, and this does look self-inflicted. She was out wide over the curb, which is a bit damp, it's a bit slippery. Locks them all up, tries to prevent herself from getting stuck in the gravel. And very, very fancy super slow-mo footage, but not footage that Charlotte Lowe is going to enjoy watching back, because that is the end of her race. And it means the safety car has been scrambled. So James Nicholas then leading the way. And Luke Shaw in behind. That looks like fresh rain now falling on the windscreen. And that means perhaps it's starting to rain again. Can't see it raining over this end of the track. And my designated weather forecaster for the day, Bryn Lucas, says it's not yet raining over at this end of the circuit, so just up at the top end of the track, which I'm guessing is the direction from which the clouds are coming. Very slight rain, I think, Bryn is now saying. Like all good weather forecasters, changing his mind. And, yeah, who knows? It's going to be one of those days, isn't it? Changing weather throughout the day, with rain forecast from about midday-ish and then about 3 o'clock-ish again. That's when the heaviest of the rain is supposed to be. So we are 11:45 now, so it is coming just about on time, isn't it, if it does start to pour. Looking above us, not too much in the way of dark clouds, so hopefully we'll get away with this, at least for the duration of this race, which has just under 14 minutes still to go. Lights flashing on the Ginetta G56 safety car. Car on which these GT Academy racing cars are based, and as you can see, really very similar in design, aren't they? There's not a lot of difference between a Ginetta G56 racing car and road car, particularly the Academy cars, because they are a proper back-to-basics racer. No traction control, no ABS, treaded tyres as well, whether it's wet or dry. At the moment it's dry. There are the current weather conditions, still mid-teens. The temperature, 0 wind though, apparently. Now that's actually cause for concern really, because if it does start raining it will probably stay for the rest of the day, which is what happened at Silverstone last time out, I seem to remember. No wind, and so it meant when it did start raining it just rained and rained and rained. So hopefully we won't have a repeat of that here today. There's Amy Tomlinson. So Amy Tomlinson, having had the spin at Redgate, she's massively benefited from this safety car, hasn't she? Because she now gets to close in on the back of the pack. And we've seen Amy have some pretty strong pace this weekend. She won the GTA class yesterday, beating Mark Elman. Mark had a penalty, I believe. Yeah, 2-place position penalty, regulation G5.3. If anyone's got a copy of the blue book in front of them, you can tell me what that means. I'm going to guess it's contact. If it's not track limits, it's normally contact, and I think it may well be that that's why he got that penalty. So actually, Amy Tomlinson didn't win the GTA class on the road, but she inherited it post-race. Right, a few of our camera operators are reporting that it's raining out on track as well. But I still don't think it's arrived at the pit straight area of the track. Anyway, whatever the conditions are, we're about to go racing in them because we've got 12 minutes to go. The safety car's heading for the pit lane, and James Nicholas now needs to try and execute a safety car restart. He's done a couple of these already this year, and James Nicholas, who claimed a race victory at Alton Park. He has won his class 3 times this year, actually, once at Alton Park and both races on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. So he has winning pedigree. Is he going to be able to add to that win tally and close the margin on Harry Gamble in the championship here at Donington? Well, let's find out then. He accelerates off the final corner. We've got 11 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock, and James Nicholas gets us back underway again as the race leader. Luke Shaw in second position. Mike Taylor, perhaps the man to watch, in third. Ahead for Redgate. Nobody here for now, anyway, choosing to dive out of line and try to make a pass. Everybody just minding their P's and Q's. Luke Shaw's had a bit of a poor run off Redgate, though, hasn't he? And so Mike Taylor getting into his wheel tracks now, tucked up underneath the back of the number 21 car. Looks to the inside at the old hairpin. Difficult place to make an overtake, that, especially when Luke Shaw brakes as late as he did. But actually, he was too late on the brakes and scrubs off exit speed. And so Mike Taylor now has the run. He's got the momentum up the hill. tucked up again behind the second place man, peeks to the inside, commits to the move, does he? He's late on the brakes, but not quite late enough. And Luke Shaw just about manages to get across to the apex first. But this battling is music to the ears of James Nicholas, because he's just starting to stretch the margin again. Had built up that little bit of a lead before the safety car came out. Oh, Harry Gamble on the grass. And don't think he lifted even for a second there, did he? Wet grass or no wet grass, he kept his foot planted and rejoined pretty much exactly where he was. Still ahead of Gareth Thomas. Significant as well to remember that the top 6 cars in this race are all running in the rookie class, so they all score points towards the same championship. The first of the non-rookies, the GTA class drivers, is Mark Elman, as Mike Taylor locks up into the Melbourne hairpin. We saw him do that a few times in yesterday's race, but that's because he had damage to the left front corner of the car. That looked more like just a genuine lock-up, but he's got to be careful not to flat spot that tyre, because the Pirelli rubber does not enjoy being dragged across the ground like that. You can flat spot the tyre and then it'll lock up every time you hit the brakes. And that's not good news at all, so Mike just needs to be a bit mindful of that maybe. He's still in third place though, because Harry Gamble is having all sorts of problems. He's got Gareth Thomas up the inside. In fact, Gareth Thomas into the back of him going into Redgate corner. That was too late on the brakes for Gareth. Caught out a little bit there by how close behind Gamble he was, I think. So he went through briefly, but then runs wide on the apex, and Gamble goes back through. So more bits of Ginetta get scattered across the track. And now Tom Balfe closes back in as well. Balfe, for whatever reason, struggling a bit for performance in this race. There's the damage to the front of Thomas's car. And here is how he got it. He's so close behind Harry Gamble, and he tries to sell the dummy, but just it's such a difficult move to make that, and he just slightly misjudged it. Got into the back of Gamble's car. No major damage done, but could easily have spun Gamble around there, which would not have been pleasant. But Gareth Thomas, undeterred, is closing right back in again now on the 4th place man. He's still shedding bits of bodywork as he heads round Coppice Corner. On board with Mark Elman, and we just saw there Julian Wantling, the next car behind him, is catching him slightly, I'd say, on this lap. These are the top 2 cars in the GTA class, Elman and Wantling. Championship lead being held in that class by Julian over Mark Elman by just 27 points, so it would be a significant win if Elman can hang on to claim it. But Julian Elman's going to do his best to try and prevent that from happening, I think. Leaders head up the hill. Now, James Nicholas, last time around, the first proper flying lap we've had, set a new fastest lap, a 1:44.255. But on this lap, look, you can see Luke Shaw is definitely going quicker than him. 2 personal best sectors so far for Luke Shaw, and Mike Taylor in third with an outright fastest first sector. In the end, none of them set a new fastest lap, but Luke Shaw is about 3/10 quicker than the race leader, and is now only a car length or so back as they turn through Redgate Corner for the 7th time. So Luke Shaw's going to have a go for this win, definitely. Luke is sitting third in the rookie championship, only 7 points behind Nicholas now after James's non-finish yesterday. Again, I should make the point this is all before drop scores, but it will actually get even tighter once you start calculating the drop score situation. So important battle this between those two. Here comes the Garage 59 car of Tom Balfe up through Plains Corner. He goes. Brilliant striking livery on the Garage 59 car, resembling that of the Garage 59 GT3 car, of course. Thomas's father, Sean, races so successfully. He heads down towards the Fogarty S's then in the wheel tracks of Gareth Thomas, who's just dropped away now from Harry Gamble, hasn't he? So Harry, the championship leader, surviving that scare at the beginning of the previous lap. The race leader is still James Nicholas as he arrives down at Melbourne once more. But actually on this lap, Luke Shaw not quite as close to the leader as he has been. Back on board with Mark Elman. So he was caught by Julian Wantling on the previous lap by a couple of tenths of a second, I think. This lap, what's happening in the sectors? Elman faster by a tenth in Sector 1, slower by 2 tenths in Sector 2. So there you can see the effect. Julian Wantling definitely getting a little bit closer now. The E3 Sport driver. Actually, his teammate, Jamie Cordell, is the next car in line as well, in 9th position in only his 2nd ever car race. Julian Wantling on that lap was 4 tenths nearly faster than Mark Elman. So got pretty close battles developing in both classes here. James Nicholas, though, has just set a new fastest lap in the rookie class, so 1:43.7. So that he is now 3/4 of a second exactly ahead of Luke Shaw. And Luke is then a 1/10 of a second slower in Sector 1 as well. In the GTA battle, Mark Ellman fractionally quicker than Julian Wantling in Sector 1, but only fractionally. So they round McLean's corner, the gap pretty static for the time being. As Julian Wantling tries to just get himself within striking range to try and claim another class victory. Julian has already claimed 4 of them this year. Only Mark Ellman and Amy Tomlinson have won aside from Julian. They've only had the 1 race victory apiece. Now back in the pack, speaking of Amy Tomlinson, she's not really made the progress back through the field that I thought she might. She's caught now Peter Thomas, hasn't she? So, sorry, Paul Thomas, excuse me, for 13th position. So she's ahead of Lucie Tomlinson at least, which means she's not last of the GTA runners, but she's only 4th. She now dives up the inside of Thomas and locks up and goes straight into the back of Ali Juffali. A big collision down at the Melbourne hairpin, and Ali Juffali completely the innocent victim there, as Amy Tomlinson got her braking all wrong at the bottom of the hill and locked them up, and from that point on it's a helpless feeling. There's nothing you can do. And Amy Tomlinson wipes out Ali Juffali. Amy's going to continue. Ali, I think, is considering trying to continue, but the fact that the rear end of his car has made it further around the corner than the rest of it tells me he's probably not going any further. And that could require another safety car. There's Amy Tomlinson. Lots of damage done to the front of her car. That's a shame. It's been a weekend that's promised a lot for Amy, but unfortunately a lot of damage done. And look, she's leaking fluid from the radiator onto the racing line as well. So into the pit lane she comes with a very badly damaged car. So is that going to require an early conclusion to the race then? We've seen race control doing this a few times already this weekend. If there's a late incident and it's going to take too long to get it sorted, they will red flag the race, which is exactly what they've done. The red flag comes out, and that means we are done with Ginetta GT Academy for now. They've got their 3rd race later on. But Ali Juffali's got going. So they probably didn't need to red flag the race, actually. Ali Juffali is back in the pit lane now, where he might well go and have a chat with Amy Tomlinson to find out what on earth happened. It wasn't intentional from Amy, obviously. It was just an honest mistake. But, yeah, Ali Juffali back in the pits and, well, maybe a bit trigger-happy with the decision to red flag the race, although there is debris on the track. There's fluid down as well. So probably was the sensible thing to do. So 3¼ minutes left on the clock. I can't see them going with a restart here. So I think James Nicholas is the race winner. And yes, checkered flag is now being shown on the timing screen. And he's going to be waved into the pit lane. Yes, he is. So James Nicholas into the pit lane. And he is the winner of the 2nd race of the weekend in the Ginetta GT Academy. Bounces back nicely after yesterday's disaster. Speaking of disaster, that was when it all went wrong for Amy Tomlinson and Ali Juffali. Tomlinson was trying to get up the inside of Paul Thomas and unfortunately locked up the brakes and went straight on. Amy is out of the car and possibly feeling a little bit sheepish after that. I'm sure she'll go and have a word with Ali and clear things up afterwards. She was on the damper side of the road as well. That can't have helped, but yeah, spectacular results from what was really only a small mistake, but fairly expensive one. So James Nicholas is the winner in the Ginetta GT Academy and undoes some of the damage that was done in the championship yesterday. Luke Shaw comes home in 2nd ahead of Mike Taylor, with Harry Gamble the points leader, only 4th. Gareth Thomas was 5th ahead of Tom Balfe, whilst Mark Ellman fended off Julian Wantling. That would have been a really interesting battle, actually, had it been allowed to run to its conclusion, but Ellman managed to get the GTA class victory over Wantling in 2nd, 7th and 8th respectively overall, ahead of Jamie Cordell and Emma Tomlinson, who rounds out the GTA class podium. Then it was Peter Thompson, Paul Thomas, Ali Juffali classified as a finisher still, as is Amy Tomlinson, 13th and 14th, with Lucie Tomlinson 15th and Lucie Hodgson in 16th position. Charlotte Lowe, the one non-finisher in the end after that spin at the chicane. So a very dramatic race, as yesterday's race was in fairness for the GT Academy, and shame that it had to end a little bit prematurely, as yesterday's race did. But this is what happened in the second race of the Ginetta GT Academy Championship at Donington Park, with Luke Shaw doing battle with James Nicholas for the lead. They both knew how important it could be to get the lead into Redgate Corner. Luke Shaw wanted it, but James Nicholas ultimately kept hold of it and led the field through the first corner. Amy Tomlinson had her first incident of note by getting tapped into a spin at Redgate Corner. She rejoined at the back and looked to be out of contention completely. Tom Balfe, Gareth Thomas and Harry Gamble were engaging in an entertaining scrap early on, and then it all went wrong for Charlotte Lowe with a self-inflicted spin at the chicane, bringing out the safety car. After the safety car, James Nicholas managed to control the race. He was under constant threat from Luke Shaw, but Luke was never quite able to get within striking range. Gareth Thomas was within striking range of Harry Gamble and almost made the move stick for 5th place at Redgate, but contact was made. He ran wide and gave the place back away. If you thought that was contact, though, it was nothing compared to what happened at the Melbourne hairpin. Amy Tomlinson out after contact with Ali Juffali, and James Nicholas, under red flag, claimed another race victory.